Hi, my name is Dwayne Squires, and this is a YouTube video on helping beginners in property investing. So it's a 5-part training course which will allow you to gain the confidence as well as awareness and skills to really kick on and really start off in property investing. So in the first video, this part 1, we're going to be talking about the basics of property investing. Now, hopefully you don't see it as something so simple and easy that you don't need to watch this video. You'll get a lot of benefit in watching this video. You have to see this video is similar to building the foundation of a pyramid or a huge structure. You don't just go and start building without creating that really strong foundation. And hopefully, and with a lot of confidence, I believe you'll be able to get that from watching this video. So let's get started. So as a quick introduction, my name is Dwayne Squires. I'm an investor and partner in Property Result Investments. I'm a mentor and specialist in sourcing below market value properties, lease option, as well as rent-to-rent deals. So just to highlight, between 2014 to 17, we sourced over 100 properties in the northeast of England, which is our goldmine area for building property portfolios for ourselves as well as our clients. Okay, so this is the basic flow of property investing. So it starts from left to right. You first of all market or source a property deal. Now, in this stage, you can either do it yourself or you can rely on others to provide you your deal. So that could be estate agents, that could be a property sourcer, it can come through various different ways. Then you go on to sign an agreement to buy that property, assuming it stacks up and it meets the criteria that you have. And then you go through the legal completion and then you rent to tenant. So based upon the strategy, the area, your whole business plan, that tenant profile can vary. It could be professionals to workers to local housing authority tenants. And then the next slide will go on to the detailed flow of the process. So this is the detailed flow of property investing. So as you said, you start off with marketing or sourcing a property, and we're going to go into a lot of detail, some really great golden nuggets that you can use in video 3 on how to find an investment deal that stacks up to the return on investment that you're looking for. And then after you've found a deal, you want to go into the next detailed stage, which is what's your investment strategy? What's your tenant group? What's the area that you're looking to find these properties in? And we're going to go into a deep dive in video 5. Then once you've got a deal in front of you, or an opportunity in front of you, should I say, you then want to look at, does that stack up? Does it give you the return on investment that you require? Does it have the cash flow, and is it in the area that you're looking for? So we're going to be doing a calculations and detailed analysis of how do you look at and analyze an investment deal. And the next stage is negotiate and agree terms. So if a deal is provided by a sourcing expert or a estate agent or whatever means that you may get that deal, that could already be negotiated and the terms could already be completed. But if you're doing this by yourself, then you may have to go through the stage of negotiating directly with the vendor, and that could take 1 day to 7 days to several months as you follow up to find and agree the terms that are beneficial for both yourself but also the vendor as well. And the next stage is around, once you've got a deal, the deal is agreed and negotiated, you then sign an agreement to buy, and you go through the legal stages. So this videos are all about training education. It's information only, so I'm not allowed to give any legal advice, but I do recommend that if you need any legal advice, you seek out a solicitor or conveyancer that knows what they're talking about. And if you need any recommendations there, then feel free to contact us and we can recommend a few of our own solicitors. And then after you've gone through the completion, it could be a property that needs a lot of refurb, or it might need a lick of paint. So it just may need to go through a renovation stage, and you will need to potentially do this yourself or get a contractor, builder or handyman to help you out. And then the last stage is renting to your tenants. So this is a whole key stage in itself, from marketing to tenants, to making sure you're interviewing tenants, to doing checks on these tenants. But the key thing here is you're right at the end of the stage, and this is where you'll be renting to tenants that should be staying there for no less than 6 months. But assuming the market is strong and the tenant profile stacks up, it could be tenants that stay here for years. We've had examples of tenants being in property for more than 15 years because the property is well kept. They've been tenants that met the strategy that was being deployed, and as well as a strong relationship being built up. So you can have tenants in your property for a very, very long time, and that is what you want. You want to have that consistency in rental income coming in. One of the key elements I want you to remember or take away is return on investment. There's a lot of advice and recommendations on how do you analyze deals, but what we deploy in our business and what I would recommend to yourselves is always look at a deal and property based on its return on investment. And the way you calculate that is based on the annual income, so the monthly income times by 12 over the capital you may have invested. So the capital you could have invested is based upon your deposit or the property purchase price if you bought it all for cash, as well as any refurbishments that you may have had, plus any outgoings such as solicitor fees and surveys. So let's get into the finance basics. So typical example that we use up in the investment area that we deploy, which is the northeast of England. You may get a property where the purchase price is 50,000, and that's typical in the area that we invest. And in doing so, you may have invested 12,500 based upon a 75% loan to value mortgage or buy to let mortgage. Now, the net income could be 210, and that's based upon getting a income of £400 per calendar month, and then your outgoings based upon a mortgage of £100, as well as considering insurance, voids and maintenance of £90. You then have a total outgoing of £190. So when you net the income by outgoings, your net income is 210. So if you remember the return on investment equation that we looked at in the previous slide, you would take that net income times that by 12. So in this example, it's £2,520 per annum. And you'll divide that by the capital you invested. So it could be a simple investment, no refurbs needed, and as a result, your capital invested is 12,500. So you divide that 2,520 divided by 12,500, and your return on investment is 20%. So when you look at this, this is a great example of something that we provide to our clients on a weekly basis. We come across these investments regularly, and when you look at the current economy, if you put your capital into a typical bank savings account, which is giving you 1%, and you compare that to this return on investment of 20%, you can see why it's such a strong benefit to invest in property. Now, the next slide, we're going to go on to the basic process applied in property. So rent basics. So property investing is a very, very simple concept. And I want to make sure you get that. Try not to overcomplicate it at all. So the simple equation is there's yourself who rents out to a tenant or tenants based upon the strategy and investment model you deploy, and they provide you a flow of rent every month or every quarter or every year, depending on the contracts that you have with that tenant, but typically it's on a monthly basis. And to support that flow of rent, you sign a contract with that tenant, which sets out various different responsibilities that you have as well as the tenant. That's the basics of renting in property investing. Now, a regular strategy deployed by a lot of investors is, if you don't want to go down the route of doing it yourself, i.e. finding tenants, marketing, finding them and managing them, you can deploy a letting agent. So in that respect, it's yourself. You have a contract with a letting agent, which is an agency agreement, and then that letting agent will market your property. They can also rent it out and then maintain that property. Anytime there may be an issue, if it ever happens, they will identify the root cause, the issue, and then they can provide their own contractors to manage that remedy and find the solution to overcome that issue. So depending on the way you want to go forward with property investing, you may be a do-it-yourself and you don't want to use letting agents, and that could be a benefit because that means that your net income will obviously be higher because there is a fee to be paid to a letting agent per month. Or you could be someone that has limited time and availability to look after your properties on a day-to-day basis, and a letting agent will be ideal in that situation. So in this slide, we're going to give you an overview of the tenant basics. So there's 6 common categories: tenants, workers, LHA, which stands for local housing authority, students, tourists, commercial. And I want to give you a quick overview. So professional tenants, these are your typical white collar tenants that work for maybe your doctors, your nurses, that work for your local hospital or hospitals, your large companies, as well as workers who work in industrial parks. And then you have your other category of tenants, which is workers. So these are your typical blue collar contractors, maybe builders, and these tenants are typically easier group to manage, but are a bit more messier. But it depends on the market that you're working in. So, because we've got examples of contractual engineers who are on a high income, and they're very similar to professional tenants. They expect a high standard and are not very messy at all. So it just depends on the tenant market that you're looking at. And then you've got LHA, local housing authority. So these are tenants that either have 100% or a certain percentage of their rent supplemented by the local council. And these tenants can be really profitable, and they can be tenants that stay in your property for years and years. As long as you've got the systems, processes and management in place, this tenant category can be really ideal for certain properties that you invest in. And then you've got student market. So these can be very profitable in areas where there's a low stock of tenant accommodation and a high demand. Maybe it's 1 or 2 universities, but there's limited purpose-built student accommodation. And then you can come on to tourists as tenants. So these could be international or domestic tenants. And with the rise of companies like Airbnb and Booking.com, there's a growing and increasing demand of properties that are serviced accommodation. So if you want to invest in serviced accommodation, then targeting these type of tourists would be your ideal tenant base. And then you've got on to commercial. So this is a B2B contract. So this could be where you've got a property in an area sought after by a large company who may have delegates or workers who have come abroad to work on a certain project. And to support that large company may rent your property or properties for the long term, maybe 12 to 24 months to 5 years, and they will then guarantee you a monthly income. So that's the tenant basics. To give you a understanding of the contracts in place when you're renting out to the tenant. So there's 2 main types. So you've got your ASTs or assured short hold tenancy groups, and AAs, which are agency agreements. So if we just start off with assured short hold tenancies, these are contracts in place between yourself as a landlord and a tenant. So if you recall the 6 tenant categories that we described before, depending on the tenant you go for, you'll have a contract signed by yourself and that tenant. And that sets out different obligations and responsibilities that you as well as the tenant have. So it sets out the term of the agreement. So typically assured short hold tenancy contracts are based on a 6-month contract, and then it has a rolling month-on-month term. And then it also sets out the deposit and how the deposit is held, the payment amount and how that will be paid. It could be direct debit or cash or whatever is maybe set out in AST. And then who's responsible for repair. So if a structural repair comes up, typically that's you as a landlord, or it could be a small minor repair, and that could be set out in the contract as something the tenant needs to pick up. But again, it sets out the responsibilities on who pays and who remedies those repairs, and also sets out termination. So it sets out what is the termination process that needs to apply. And then we come on to your agency agreement. So it's a very simple agreement between yourself and the letting agent. So this is ideal for you if you have limited time and availability and you want to bring in place a letting agent. That letting agent can either do the marketing, or it could do the marketing and vetting of tenants, or it could do the whole process from marketing to vetting to managing that property. It sets out the fees that you will pay, and typically with a letting agent it could be 5 to 10% depending on the area. So in London, where the rents are typically higher, the letting agent fee is typically lower, so the percentage is around 4 to 5%, whilst the further north you go, letting agent fees are around 10%. And depending on the strategy you may deploy, it could go up to 15% if you have a house of multiple occupancy. So this is something that you need to find out with the letting agent that you work with, but it's typically 5 to 10 to 15% of the gross rental income. And also sets out the payment flow. So sets out, for example, that the tenant will pay letting agent, and a letting agency will then deduct their fees and then pay you as a landlord. And it also sets out the deposit protection. So always seek to have is a deposit in place between yourself and the tenant. And there's only a few instances where you may not want to go ahead with this. For example, the tenant have a very long-term contract, and as a result, you're willing to forego having a deposit. But what I highly recommend is having a deposit in place and a legal requirement that you have a deposit protection in place for the tenant. And similar to an AST, there's also a clear termination agreement between yourself and the letting agent. Now, if you want to get hold of the AST or the management agreement we have in place between our letting agents or our tenant, then feel free to get in touch with us and we can provide that to you for free. So that's contract basics. Power team basics. What do we mean by power team? So this is what I mean by individuals, teams, and networks that you will grow and nurture and will really help you build and succeed in property investing. I really can't stress and emphasize enough how useful and how advantageous having a power team will be and is. In our business, if we didn't have the power team that we have as of today, we would never have succeeded as much as we have, and we owe a lot to them. This is a power team we built over the years of our property investing careers. So let's go into a bit more detail. So having a broker, so a financial broker who will scour the market of finding mortgages and ways to fund your property investing. And then you have a solicitor, and I really do recommend that you try and find as many solicitors as you can, and then try and filter them down to 2 or 3 that you go to on a regular basis. Having a solicitor that can advise in a timely manner is so important. So there's a lot of solicitors, and based on the models that these solicitors may have, it can take a number of weeks and even months for a property deal to go through. But in our business, our solicitors typically turn around property in 3 to 4 weeks maximum. So you want to find a solicitor that can do that and who can help save you money and save you time and try and protect your business against any surprises in legal or contractual changes. Really can't stress enough about having a strong solicitor. And then letting agents, so I've explained in various different slides the importance of a letting agent, save you time, and they should also save you money as well. So again, with letting agents, I do recommend that you go and speak to as many letting agents as you can, really get a feel for those individuals, try and build a relationship, and then have 2 or 3 letting agents that you go to on a regular basis. And then an accountant, so it doesn't matter if you're only investing in one property or several, or you're already creating a long-term business around property investing, but having an accountant that can recommend ways to save money or property investing is critical. So I recommend you get an accountant. So we use several different accountants, some that we go to for advice, and there's one that we go to complete our accounts. But I do recommend it as you build up your network of contact, truly try and find 2 or 3 accountants that you can go to. And then you've got tradesmen. So as part of the property investing, process, you will need to have a tradesman or tradesman that you can rely upon. Maybe it's just to do a quick refurb, or some to just maybe put in place your furniture and fixture package for your tenants. Having a general tradesman will already help with that. And it's not just about the refurb aspect and maintenance aspect, but your tradesman can also find and recommend property deals that they may come along. These are individuals that may work with other landlords, or they may work with other residents in the area who could be looking to sell their property, and they may be able to recommend a deal that is off the market and that meets your criteria. And then you've got a property sourcer. So this is really ideal for those that have limited time and availability but have the capital to invest. So when you're looking for a sourcer, we've got many videos and can recommend things that you need to look out for when you're trying to find a property sourcer. But key things you need to look for is, can they get deals off market? They should be looking to maximize your ROI, return on investment. Can they give you local information on what's going on in the marketplace? Have they got their credentials? Have they got experience on finding deals? Can they give you testimonials? And are they willing to show you around the marketplace and mentor you in terms and recommending deals that meet your criteria? If you're going to go down the route of using a property sourcer, make sure you do your due diligence, that you find a sourcer that will and knows what they're doing and knows how to find the deals that you're looking for. And another power team member is gaining a mentor. So those that are watching these videos, I am making a guess here that you're new to property investing, and as such, gaining a mentor will really help cut the time it takes to get the results you need. Personally, it took me quite a while to go down the route of a mentor. I think it took 3 or 4 years. And since gaining a mentor, my success in property investing has gone through the roof. It's really improved significantly. Personal recommendation is get a mentor, because they will save you so much time. You're effectively learning from their mistakes without having you experience those mistakes. So highly recommend that you get a mentor and you learn as much as you can from them. And if you need any suggestions, feel free to reach out to us on gaining a mentor or any other aspects of your power team. We can recommend brokers, solicitors, letting agents, accountants, tradesmen, and we are a property sourcer, but you don't need to come to us to find a property if you don't wish to go down that route. But we can help you build your property portfolio, save you time and money, and we can also help advise on how you can find a good property sourcer. So on any one of these aspects around power team, feel free to reach out to us. And then just want to go through an example of property investing. So this is a quick case study of a recent deal one of our clients completed from us. So we identified a property deal, we were direct to the vendor, negotiated a deal and find the terms that were suitable for them, and it was a below market value deal. So the market price was 33,000, and then we negotiated a deal with the vendor of 20,000, and this property needed 0 refurbishment and was already let, and the income was £370 per month, or 4,400 for the year, and the ROI for our client was 22%. So as I've said previously, we come across these deals on a day-to-day, weekly basis. So if this interests you, feel free to get in touch, or if you're looking at how you can find these deals yourself, again, feel free to reach out to us. We can help you. Why invest in property? Why now? These are questions that may be coming into your mind. So there's a huge demand for housing in the UK. The UK is an island. The population is increasing. There's migration internationally as well as domestically. That's really driving up the demand in housing. And as you may understand or may have seen in the news, the UK just cannot build enough houses to keep up with demand. And that goes on to a second point. That's really what's driving house prices, as well as it being a strong investment. The lack of supply versus demand is driving up house prices, and rents are also going up. So you've got a positive curve both in prices as well as rents that's supporting property as a strong investment. asset. And then we go on, there's very limited time required in property investment when done right. I need to stress that, when done right. So when you've built up our power team, when you know your property strategy, when you have the processes and understanding and education, be it through training, research or mentoring, you can create a really strong property investing strategy and portfolio. That means that you need limited time in this area, but you have to put the right processes in place and have the right training education. Renting is at record highs. So over the years, rents have been on a positive curve and continually go up as demand for rental accommodation increases. Property investing is a lower risk investment versus higher risk investments such as stocks and shares. From personal experience, I used to trade in bond market at the age of 18 and 19, and I still invest in stocks now. It's typical that in this asset class of stocks, shares and bonds, of prices going down by 20, 30, 40% in various different scenarios in one day. And that just doesn't happen in property. And it's a lower risk investment because it's a physical asset. With property, you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it. Whilst with stocks and shares, it's not the case. And if a company is bankrupt, it's bankrupt, and your stocks or shares are worth nothing. Now, property investing is very different. It's a physical asset, and you're getting a monthly income on a long-term basis. So if you go back to our way of investing in property, return on investment, that 20% or 22% is something that you can achieve continuously over a long term, year on year. And it's very common based on empirical evidence that property prices double in price every 7 years. Now, property investing is also a high income business. Based on a model of investing, you can get £200 to £1,000 a month, depending on the strategy that you deploy. It's also flexible as an investment. There's different strategies that you can deploy, depend on your appetite and depend on what your long-term goals are. It's also a business that has no boundaries to you investing, and that's one of the great things about property investing. You don't need to have a formal education, you don't need a degree. You can start with a limited amount of income, and with the right strategy, guidance and mentoring, you can do exceptionally well. Now you may be asking yourself, how can I build a profitable property portfolio? Now there's 3 steps I really highly recommend you take. Number 1 is educate yourself effectively by watching all of the videos in this training series. With a great education and great training, you can do a lot of things. In this training series, we'll dive into a lot of detail that I believe once you finish watching these videos, you can start with confidence investing in property. Number 2 is researching. I assume you're a beginner investor and you may have a number of questions and gaps in your knowledge. And by undertaking further training, number 1, completing this training series, doing research on your area and doing due diligence, it will go a long way to you building a successful property portfolio. Number 3 is take action. There's many people that will watch this video series and not take action. Now, hopefully you're very different. I really encourage you to watch the video series, take action, ask questions, and take as much action needed to fulfill the goals that you need. Now, to support with you taking actions, I recommend a mentor is something that you consider and take on, because they'll give you the confidence that you need to take the actions that will deliver a massive result in your property investing. So if you have any questions on this video or would like help with your property investing, please feel free to reach out to myself or my business partner Richard Muse using the contact details on screen. We would love to help. So we've completed part 1 of the training video series. Hopefully you found a lot of value in it. I please recommend that you watch part 2 of the video series, where we'll go into the financial model of investing property. So the strategies that you need to consider, how much capital you need to get started, how you can get 15% plus return on your investment passively, plus a lot more. So please watch video 2 of this training series. And also, whilst you're watching this video, please subscribe. That means that you'll get access to new videos that we create on property investing. So please subscribe on the button below.